The markets end the week lower as election volatility continues to plague the Sensex and the Nifty. All Adani Group stocks surge as Jefferies gives them a thumbs up. The DGCA issues a show cause notice to Air India for 2 flight delays. Passengers allegedly fainted on the flight due to lack of air conditioning while waiting for hours. The DGCA says the airline is repeatedly failing to take care of passengers. A big positive surprise, India's GDP grows by 7.8% in the fourth quarter of FY24 and 8.2% for the full year. This is a full percentage point higher than analyst estimates. In the backdrop of the Pune Porsche case, Maharashtra Excise Department mandates installation of AI-powered CCTV cameras in all hotels, bars and pubs that sell liquor. Says the footage should be accessible on mobile devices of department officials and the police. The Delhi government writes to the Supreme Court seeking additional water supply from Haryana, Uttar Pradesh and Himachal Pradesh. For a month, the national capital reels under severe water and power shortage. Well, good evening and welcome. You're watching The Reporter on NDTV Profit and I'm Nupur Talwar Suri. Our top news story right now, of course, is India's recovery remained on track in the fourth quarter of the fiscal 2024 with the economy performing better than expected. GDP data for the quarter rose 7.8% in the Jan-March quarter. Now, according to the government, the country is seeing an FY24 growth at 8.2%. These numbers, of course, are beating estimates. Joining me in the studio right now is Pallavi. Pallavi, give us a broad sense of what these numbers actually indicate.
Right, Nupur. As you've said, GDP has grown at 8.2% for the full fiscal year. GVA growth has come in at 7.2%. GDP for the fourth quarter has come in at 7.8%, while GVA has come in at 6.3%. Pretty much both on a quarterly basis as well as on an annual basis. These figures have actually surprised on the upside. I'll quickly take a minute to go through the quarterly estimates for GVA. Now, agriculture has come in at just about 0.6% for quarter four. We weren't expecting particularly strong performance by the agricultural sector, but prospects do look up given that the southwest monsoons this year are expected to be normal. That definitely bodes well for the sector. That's something we're going to be watching out for. Manufacturing has continued to surprise on the upside. Very strong figures, both manufacturing and construction. Manufacturing has come in at 8.9%, while construction has come in at 8.7%. They're both clearly driving economic growth. Services has remained more or less on track with trade, hotels, transport at 5.1% and financial, real estate and professional services at about 7.6%. Another figure that I was particularly watching out for was, of course, private consumption. It's been on a little bit of a weak footing all of last year. That was something that we were watching out for, and that has, for both the quarter as well as for the full year, come in at about 4%. A fairly decent figure, but growth continues to be driven by gross capital formation with government capital expenditure, sort of not particularly powering the economy, but that's again not entirely on unexpected lines. All in all, a good set of figures, definitely a surprise on the upside. This is the third straight year that India's GDP growth has been in excess of or at 7%, and FY25 too, importantly, is looking good so far. The RBI annual report has recently pegged growth at 7%, so that'll be yet another year of again 7 or 7+% growth. High frequency indicators, even though we have very few of those so far and we're only in the month of May, are looking up.
Right, absolutely, Pallavi. So this, of course, is bringing good cheer, positive cheer to everybody right ahead of the election results, if we might add. Thank you very much, Pallavi, for joining us. Let's, in fact, now see how the markets have performed today. Samina is now joining us for a quick wrap of all the action from D Street. Samina, how did the markets end the week?
And what a week it's been for the markets as we go into the last 2 days ahead of that big event of the Lok Sabha election outcome on Tuesday. The markets have seen a very volatile week. But the good news is we've ended the week with a cut, but a cut of that was not too extensive, 1.6% lower on the Nifty for the week. Today's day of trade saw the markets turn fairly volatile. We spent some time in negative territory, but finally went home with marginal gains in trade. The star of the week, though, must be Bank Nifty. It's had an outperforming run for the last couple of days, closing shy of 49,000 in today's day of trade, but outperforming the benchmark with gains of 0.3%. The mid-cap index went home with gains of 0.6%. The small-cap and the micro-cap index also going on with marginal gains. Well, the big talking point, though, is that it seems like market participants chose to remain cautious and, of course, tread carefully ahead of Tuesday's event. The breadth of the market was biased towards the downside from the get-go this morning. Didn't really get worse by the time we closed shop. In fact, all we did see was some amount of improvement. The stars of trade today is got to be the Adani Group companies. In fact, they single-handedly could have helped the Nifty close in positive territory. Adani Enterprise going home with gains of 7% on back of the Jefferies report. Adani Ports as well saw a gain of nearly 4%. Shriram Finance, Coal, Tata Steel were some of the other big gainers. Auto counters had a mixed day of trade. Remember, you have auto sale numbers that get reported tomorrow. So that's going to be an important directional cue coming for auto players over the next few days of trade. DVs, Nestle, Dr. Risso, LLT, IT saw some profit taking. Pharma saw some losses as well. Real estate had a pretty good day, and metals actually continued to gain. You'd have expected the VIX to actually jump further ahead of Tuesday, but contrary to that, the VIX actually cooled off to sub 24 in today's day of trade. 24.60 is where we're going home with, which isn't too bad to say the least. But all in all, it's been a volatile week ahead of Tuesday's big event. The Nifty is down 1.6% for the week, but ending the day on a positive note. Well, that's all we have for the markets. It's going into the weekend, but lots of excitement lined up next week, so stay tuned.
All right, thank you for that, Samina. Now, Jefferies is bullish on the Adani Group and has maintained a buy call on all three companies it covers. Let's go across to Mahima for more. Mahima, what does the Jefferies note essentially say?
So Jefferies has come out with a note on Adani Group where it is said that Adani Group's 40% EBITDA growth, Adani Group has witnessed a 40% EBITDA growth, and this is on account of improved leverage ratios in FY24. During FY24, the group focused in keeping the debt at the same level and reducing the founders' share pledge. What we also saw that promoters increased stake in group companies, and the group market cap has rebounded from that. The group is back on expansion spree and eyeing $9 billion capex over the next decade. Net debt to EBITDA has improved materially to 3.3 times in FY24 and EBITDA versus EBITDA of 5 times of YOY. Overall, specific to companies, they've said that Adani Enterprises is scaling up its captive capacity towards green hydrogen production by FY27. Navi Mumbai Airport appears likely to commission in Q4 FY25. Data center projects are scaling up in terms of management for cements. Management has guided doubling of cement capacity and cement to scale up its unit EBITDA to industry leading at rupees 1450 to 1500 per ton by FY28. In Adani Ports, they are targeting 18% EBITDA CAGR in by FY29. And Adani Green has raised its 2030 power capacity target from 45 gigawatt to 50 gigawatt. So this is the overall highlights of what Jefferies is saying about the Adani Group.
Now, moving on, the RBI has moved around 107 metric tons of gold from the United Kingdom to India. Mimamsa Verma has some key numbers to share with us. Mimamsa, we understand that the gold was shifted logistically and for storage purposes, but give us more details, please.
So RBI has moved 107 for all central banks to its vaults in India in FY24. Now, of course, you said this transfer is aimed at diversifying storage capacities by RBI. Certainly, Indians are fond in general of gold holdings, but this development has a nostalgic value attached to it. In 1991, Chandrasekhar government pledged 21 metric tons of gold to tackle the balance of payment crisis. And in the last few years as well, the RBI has been steadily building up up its gold reserves as a part of its diversification strategy at a time when the risk aversion sentiment across the world has heightened due to geopolitical turmoil in Russia and in Middle East. In fiscal 2024, the share of gold reserves in RBI's foreign currency assets rose to 8.15% at 27.46 metric tons from 7.81% at the end of the previous fiscal year. So this year, the RBI has added 27.46 metric tons to its gold reserve, to its coffers, since gold acts as a natural hedge against price volatility. So it seems like a better option for all central banks to diversify their foreign currency assets towards gold holdings. And a persistent rise in the gold prices during the financial year, about 11% this fiscal, have also resulted in valuation gains for the RBI.
Now, India's peak power demand touched a high of 250 gigawatts on Thursday, May the 30th, in a second day of consecutive rise in demand led by intense heat wave conditions in the whole of North and West India, as per data that has been released by the Grid Control of India. Vikas Srivastav joins us with more.
The peak power demand in India touched a high of 250 gigawatt, which is the highest that India has ever recorded. And this is a consecutive second day of increase in demand of peak power demand in the country, mostly because of soaring temperatures in the north and west of the country. This has also led to increased demand across most of the states. If we compare all the 10 top power consuming states with the September month when the last year's peak was reached, we have seen significant increase in power demand in most of these states. The power demand was led by Uttar Pradesh, which saw an increase of 28,000 megawatt, followed by Maharashtra, which was also nearly 28,000 megawatt. Gujarat, Karnataka, and other southern states also have seen the increase in power demand. But what is noticeable is that this year the demand increase has not led to the power shortages in these states. All these top 10 states have reported zero shortages in power. But when we compare it with September month last year, there was significant shortages in power demand in most of these states. This is mostly because of preemptive measures that the government had taken. The government had asked all the imported coal-based power plants to run at full capacity. This year, they also mandated running the gas-based power plants at full capacity, and they have postponed the operations and maintenance of all the power plants till further notice, till the summer demand is there.
All right, Vikas, thank you for joining us with those details. Now, moving on, you can watch the counting day action on movie theatres near you if you live in Maharashtra. MovieMax will screen the election day results live in theatres for a nominal charge. Maitri has all the details. Maitri, interesting concept over there.
So MovieMax is definitely not screening just movies, but also election results on June 4. Yes, you heard it right. MovieMax is actually streaming election results from 9 a.m. onwards on June 4 in 4 major cities of Maharashtra, which are Mumbai, Pune, Nagpur and Nashik. Well, all of this will definitely not be for free. MovieMax has actually set a basic price of 99 rupees per ticket for this. Now, they have collaborated with Times Nav Bharat, and the channel will be streamed live across all theatres of MovieMax, where they will show live coverage throughout the day. Now, what we have got to know from sources is MovieMax is also in touch with other local governments of other states like UP, Rajasthan and Haryana, where they are also wanting to stream election result coverage on June 4. But for now, they have approval only for Maharashtra. Apart from that, it will be very interesting to see whether people do come up, they step out of their houses or they leave their TV screens or digital screens and they head to theatres to actually watch the result coverage throughout the day in a theatre. Apart from that, slightly concerning is actually what can be slightly concerning is that large gathering in cinema halls can actually cause some political turmoil, some serious turmoil. And for that, when we reached out to MovieMax for it, they actually told us that they are catering to the security reasons. But it will still be very interesting to see that how many people do step up.
All right, Maitri, thank you very much for that. On that note, we slip into a short break. On the other side, we bring you more. Stay with us. Now, the Director General of Civil Aviation has issued a show-cause notice to Air India for long delays of its 2 flights. This move was initiative after the Civil Aviation Minister Jyotiraditya Scindia's intervention. Now, passengers inside an Air India flight allegedly fainted due to lack of air conditioning. The flight, which was to fly from Delhi to San Francisco, was delayed by over 8 hours. The passengers boarded the flight and were stuck inside the aircraft for nearly an hour without air conditioning. It was only after an hour that they were allowed to go back to the terminal. The flight finally took off after 20 hours of delay. In fact, the Civil Aviation Minister spoke to NDTV's Vishnu Som about the show-cause notice that has been issued to Air India.
The essential message that we are trying to send is the same message that I sent airport operators last December of 2022. Wherein the job of an airport is to be service-oriented and customer-oriented. And that has to be the first and the last concern of an airport. Similarly is the case for an airline operator, be it X, Y, or Z. The fact that if you have a issue with an aircraft or an issue with the crew, or an issue with the pilots, then it is important, first of all, to keep every passenger abreast of the latest evolving scenario. Second, give them the choice to continue with their travel or not. And third, if it extends beyond a period of time, then you must cancel the flight and reschedule it, and therefore alleviate the suffering of any passenger. And if any passenger has to wait for 8 hours, and mind you, the time period of 8 hours is the duration almost of a Mumbai-London flight or a Delhi-London flight. Waiting inside the aircraft with no air conditioning or waiting inside the terminal with no facilities, unfortunately, that is unacceptable to me.
All right, now we are now joined by aviation expert Parvez Damania. Mr. Damania, thank you very much for joining us on the show this evening. Mr. Damania, this is just one instance that we are seeing today. But in the past, there have been many others. There's been, of course, that infamous P-Gate incident. You know, there have been reports of broken seats on these flights. To all the strikes of these employees, you know, there were so many flights which had to be cancelled because of employees. What, according to you, is going wrong with these 4 airlines that the Tatas own?
First and foremost, thank you very much for inviting me. It is very unfortunate what is happening. I just heard the Honorable Minister of Civil Aviation, and it's very, very clear that certain standards have to be maintained by the airline. Today, the success story of the airlines is because of the huge support in flying passenger. Now, why I was very, very certain when this whole project started of Tata's taking over Air India, that they will be able to turn around in a very short time and will be able to deliver an exceptional product like all Tata products. Unfortunately, it's taking slightly longer than expected. I have no doubt that Tata, being a very consumer-oriented group, must be trying the level best to shape up and bring the standards up. But unfortunately, they are failing again and again, and I hope they sort out their issues. See, turning around an airline is not an easy job. Air India had a lot of issues. A lot of issues will take time to change. Aircrafts cannot be refurbished overnight. Changes cannot be brought about overnight. They have inherited a lot of legacy, which all was not very positive. So I'm sure they're trying. Let's hope they shape up. But certain standards to support the consumer should be maintained. An 8-10 hour delay is absolutely not acceptable. They should have cancelled the flight, provided the basic support services to the consumer. So it's sad what has happened, really.
Damania, you touched upon the fact that, you know, some of these are legacy issues, but the fact also remains that despite these legacy issues, perhaps the time that they have taken so far should have been enough to at least sort out some of the HR issues that they've been facing.
I'm sure they are trying to sort out. I have no doubt nobody likes to deliver a bad quality service to the consumer, particularly the Tata Group. But now I cannot go deep into the situation, understand what difficulties they are facing. They have an excellent team. They've turned around very large companies. They're delivering very well in all other areas. Why this is taking so long, I do not understand. But like I said, changing an airline, turning around an airline takes time. Changing the engineering setup, changing the manpower. See, they cannot overnight change the manpower. The other issue being because the growth of the aviation industry so fast in India, manpower shortage is there and will remain for a very long time to come. Pilot shortage will remain and all airlines will face this shortage. Pilots, engineers. Also, the other issue being, which is very serious, is the infrastructure. The government is doing the level best to sort out the infrastructure issues. The issues, it's a positive side, but unfortunately, our growth is so fast that the infrastructure is not keeping pace with the growth. So these are issues. I'm sad to see that this is happening. I hope things change, and I'm sure they will in record time. Fly Vistara a number of times. I've recently flown Air India. I've had no issues. But these international flights seem to be creating a lot of hassle, it seems. And one of the issues would be pilots also.
Right. Also, finally, Mr. Damania, what are your thoughts on the mammoth task that the Tatas have before them of merging 4 airlines into 2, and they're looking at October? That's what we've heard lately. How do you see that going?
Oh, I think, what happened if you have 4 different airlines, problem being salaries will be an issue, management will be an issue, everything will be an issue. Once the whole thing merged into one large company, then the management will become very much easier. Costs will reduce. There'll be parity on pays with all the other airlines. So I'm sure they're trying to do, and you are aware that Tata has placed an absolutely enormous order for aircrafts, Boeing and Airbus both. So they must be working towards it. And if they want to turn around this company and make money and make it a financial success, overall a success story, they will definitely have to shape up in the shortest possible time.
All right. Any thoughts on why this repeatedly keeps happening, despite the fact that detailed, guidelines have been issued by DGCA? In fact, we just had that conversation where Mr. Scindia pointed out that we've issued them a show cause notice, and in the past, there's been a very detailed guideline given on how to treat passengers if something like this happens.
The guidelines are there, but unfortunately, I've seen in the past with most airlines that those guidelines are not being followed. Minute things collapse at the airport, people just vanish, and there's no accountability. Nobody answers to anybody. So the consumer is not always treated in the standards which he should have been treated.
And you're right,
You're
right, we've all faced it. I mean, there'll be very few consumers who've not faced that. Thank you very much, Mr. Damania, for joining us this evening and sharing your thoughts.
Thank you very much for inviting. Thank you.
Of course, so he does remain positive that issues will be sorted out. In fact, that's all the time we have on the show this evening. Thank you very much for joining us, but do stay tuned to NDTV Profit for more news. The markets end the week lower as election volatility continues to plague the Sensex and the Nifty. All Adani Group stocks surge as Jefferies gives them a thumbs up. The DGCA issues a show cause notice to Air India for 2 flight delays. Passengers allegedly fainted on one of its flights due to lack of air conditioning while waiting for hours. The DGCA says the airline is repeatedly failing to take due care of passengers. The Civil Aviation Minister Jyotiraditya Scindia